This is the Inspection Pro Joe podcast, where we break down everything you need to know to grow a successful home inspection company. Join hosts Joey and Jake as they share insider knowledge and chat with the industry's best on how to take your business to the next level.
This program is brought to you by Pair Payments. All right, welcome back to Inspection Pro Joe, episode 30. Today, Joey and I have with us Dirk Van Reenen, the founder and CEO of BERGflow and the co-founder of IEB. Dirk, we're very happy to have you with us today.
Yeah, Jake, appreciate that, man. Excited to be on the show.
Yeah, we're really excited. I mean, we were just at your event, the IEB conference, and right from the start, it was just a different kind of energy that I've never been a part of in the inspection industry. And then after finishing the event, it's just a testament to what you guys are doing within this industry, the collaboration, the quality of inspectors that you guys bring to the table is just tremendous. We were talking a little bit before. I've never been around so many $5 million companies at an event before in the inspection industry. And following the event, I'm like, that's why they're 5 million, because they're part of this incredible community that you guys put together. So kudos to you, man. You've done a great job, and Brian's done a great job with Inspector Empire Builder. So thanks for being here. Really excited.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about that. You know, when Greg and I started IEB, we really had a vision for creating, you know, the next level community for the inspection industry. We looked at the industry and saw that it was extremely fractured, and the level of thinking was very low in the industry, right? There wasn't a lot of collaboration. There wasn't a lot of let's really help each other to succeed at higher levels and learn how we can share, collaborate, and just expand our thinking. And really, you know, teaching people how to run businesses at a higher level. And you know, we're 3.5 years in now, and we've just seen so many companies explode in growth. I mean, you guys were at the conference, right? So you can see the level of companies. And I mean, when we launched IEB, I mean, the biggest company in IEB was a $3 million company. And, you know, today, the biggest company is about 10 million. And like you said, I mean, we've got so many companies that are over 5 million now. And I mean, just are growing aggressively. And these companies aren't growing by like 10, 20, 30% a year. Even the $4 or $5 million companies are growing at 60, 80, 100% a year right now. And that's exciting for us. Because I think, you know, if we look at private companies in the industry right now, there was a massive gap between the biggest company in America versus like the biggest IEB company. That gap is really small now. And I 100% will stand behind this, that in the next 2 to 3 years, probably the top 5 companies in the US will all be IEB companies, because the level of growth, expansion, what the level of leadership of their companies, the ability to attract talent, hire the right people, build collaborative teams. I mean, all of that is just on such a higher level than anything else we've seen in the industry. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And I believe you mostly because of, other than all of that high level thinking and the technical stuff, you also have a palpable energy. I know Joey came out of the IEB Unite conference talking about the energy he felt there. But after we've interviewed in our last couple of episodes, a couple of IEB members, it really stands out how they're energized. They're ready to go. They're ready to keep expanding. How do you get that energy?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that we're very, very particular about our community, because we knew that the most powerful thing that we can do in IEB is build an incredible community. So we set some rules in place very early on of how we show up, how we treat each other, how we respect each other, and how we share to help each other. So, you know, we said, first off, I mean, if anybody ever asks a question in one of our communities and somebody blasts that person for asking a question, that person's exited out of IEB. Because again, we looked at so many other groups in the inspection industry, and it's like somebody asks a question and then like 35 people just blast that person of like, why are you asking this question? It's a stupid question. You shouldn't even be in the industry. And like all of that is like complete bullshit. So we said right off the bat, like, look, if you are an IEB and you have a question, ask that question and we will help you with it. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we started building trust that way within our community. And then we started showing our community how to start collaborating, how to start thinking together, and really how to start thinking at a level of abundance. Because what we have is like, we have people that call and say like, oh, I'm in this city. Do you have somebody else in IEB that's in this city? Because if there is, I'm not going to join. And be like, if that's your attitude, you should not join because you're not the right cultural fit for IEB, right? We've got in Houston now, we've got 5 enterprise companies, right? Meaning that we've got 5 companies in Houston that not necessarily that Houston's their base, but some of these companies have expanded, right? We've got Brian and Brian in Houston. We've got Gordon Fox in Houston. They're hub cities, but then Super Inspector out of Dallas has expanded there. Greenworks out of Dallas has expanded there. Max Inspections out of Florida have expanded there, right? So all of these companies are north of $4 million companies. We got 5 of these competing in one city. And yet on a weekly basis, all 5 of these companies meet to mastermind together, to share ideas, to help each other grow, because that's our vision, is that these companies come together to help each other grow, expand, go into multiple cities, right? And that's happening in markets where we've got 2 or 3 small companies that are competing against each other, where before it's like, well, I've got this competitor that's also an IEB, I don't want to share my stuff. And like the first thing we say is like, look, you should go ask that person if you can go grab coffee or grab a beer or grab a meal with them, sit down, get to know them, and talk about how can you guys work together to take the level of professionalism, service, everything else to the next level in your industry, in your local market, because that's how you're going to win. So, for us, it's always been about empowering our community, and it was never about Greg or I being like the face of IEB or anything like that. I mean, we try to step into the background as fast as we can to bring other people. And if you guys were at the event, you saw like our whole coaching team up there. I mean, we've got freaking rock stars that are coaches for IEB. I mean, these people are savvy business people. They're strong leaders. They have the right kind of integrity, servant heart. I mean, they're just incredible human beings. And that's what we try to do, is when we see people serving the community at a higher level, that are growing their businesses, that are giving back, we create more opportunity for them. And we're just like now really starting to feel the momentum of 3.5 years of kind of engineering the culture of IEB. And that's why when you go to an event, there's just like this incredible energy and like feeling of acceptance and collaboration. And I mean, you guys were there for the design session, right? Like how insane to have 200 people in 2.5 hours go through that level of chaos to design the inspection company of the future, and design also like how IEB can support them to build those kind of companies, right? That only comes from having the right setting and the right culture and the right people.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dirk, you brought up a great point too, collaborative teams. And I made a big note of that, because I think, for so many of us, like if we're the leader of our organization, we feel like we're the only one in charge and we're making all the shots. But I think, just from what you're saying, even with IEB, it's, hey, we have 200 people that's collaborating, and imagine the minds of 200 compared to just 1 or 2 is truly incredible. And I know one of the changes when I came back to my organization, I have a general manager, director of operations. I was like, us 3 need to work together. Like, it's no longer like I tell you something and then you pass it along. Like, no, us 3 are gonna get together, and we're gonna meet, and we're gonna collaborate, because us 3 working together, sharing ideas, is gonna be so much more powerful than just me or me or Lenny, or even bringing in the inspectors involved. It's just crazy. You're right, when you can bring people together like that for a common purpose and get everybody on the same page. It's incredible what we can achieve.
For you guys, do you guys do audio only or video also?
Both.
Okay, so can I share my screen, because I want to just illustrate something to you guys about that and why this is so important. Because
yes, absolutely.
If you don't understand this part of it, it's going to be very problematic for you in the future. Okay, so when we talk about collaboration, the reason that we're so adamant about collaboration, and I don't know if you guys were in the Pivot Ready Teams breakout that we had, but
we did.
Yeah, so if we kind of have a chart over here, and in this chart we've got the rate of change. We've got the rate of change over here, right?
Yep.
And then we've got time over here. Okay, so we've got these 2 variables on this axis, and the first thing that we look at is this kind of static line over here, and this line we'll call There we go. All right, we'll call it the human adaptation to change, right? Meaning that how fast can a human adapt to a changing environment? So from the beginning of time, like let's just say that this is from kind of when we start, like humans could even like start understanding like timelines and change or anything like that. Humans have always had a static ability to change, meaning that you have only so much capacity to handle change before your body starts and your mind starts getting stressed out, right? Mm-hmm. So what's happened is then we kind of go, we're going to go and we actually have a variable. So then we're going along and like nothing's changing for like much for a really long time, right? It's kind of like very static. And then all of a sudden, like things start changing. It's like you start, going from the agricultural, like, era to more of, the kind of metals era, industrial era, like the steam engines, electricity, internet, like all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, like the J curve happens, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of what's been going on. And then there's this intersection point of the human ability to handle change and then the rate of change in the world. And this point happened in 2016. Okay. So since 2016, there's been kind of this thing going on that some people, like a lot of people recognize it. Like I always ask people, like when we do training stuff, hey, have you recognized that something has shifted in the world in the last couple of years, but you can't quite put your finger on it? It's like you realize like there's a little bit more anxiety, a little bit more like unknown, a little bit more like, man, I'm not just all the way on top of my game right now. And what that is it's actually because the world is changing faster today than us as humans have the ability to react to the change. And when I actually discovered this in 2016, I was the CEO of a large real estate brokerage. We had about 500 agents doing about $800 million a year in sales. And, life was good and, a lot of good things. But the moment that I saw this, it's like something got anchored in my mind that I could not get out of my mind. And I said, this is going to completely change everything. It's going to change the way that businesses operate in the future. It's going to change the way that people collaborate. It's going to change everything. And if people don't understand this and don't understand how to collaborate and build what we call like a pivot ready team, they're going to start falling behind in business and they will never recover. Right. So Joey, when you say like, hey, I wanted to go back and work with my team because I can't be the top-down leader. Like top-down leadership is dead, right? If you look at like the management world, right, the term management and managers, things like that, that was like that term started really kind of coming out in like the 40s and like by the 60s it was like the hottest thing. Like you're a manager, right? By the 80s, management was dead, and we started talking about leadership. Right. Going to the 80s, like the concept of leadership was like really early and like, but most people didn't actually get on board with leadership until like the 2000s, 2010s. But by that point, leadership is actually kind of not the thing anymore. It's not the leader being the leader anymore. It's collaborative teams. Right. If you even like guys like John Maxwell, which are the kind of foremost authorities on leadership. Like, he's written more leadership books than anybody else. John Maxwell today will say that it's not about leadership anymore, it's about teams. We're now in the teams era. And in 2016, like that's when it popped in my head is like, oh my gosh, like we have to build collaborative based teams if we want to survive in the future with business. And so that's when I actually resigned from the company that I was with, and I started BERGflow for that reason, is to say, look, we want to work on building collaborative teams within organizations and businesses so people understand the right structure, how to hire the right people, how to train them, develop them, and lead them, but from a collaborative standpoint, not from a top-down leadership standpoint. So, that's why it's so important today that if you can't collaborate, if you can't hire the right people that are bringing really good ideas into your world that can take ownership of those ideas and help you execute, you're dead in the water. Right, because especially I mentioned this last week, the level of competition in the inspection industry is really low, and I know that's probably like super offensive to some people because like, Dirk, you don't understand my market. There's like, I am telling you, like I've come out of industries that are actually really competitive industries. The inspection industry is not competitive, right? And that's why we're seeing these big companies that even like $2, $3, $4 million companies are hitting 100% year-over-year growth right now. In other industries, like that doesn't just happen. Like companies are growing 20, 30, 40% a year, not 100% a year at that size, is because the level of competition is still really low, because so much of the industry is still a technician mindset industry. Right now, it's like, there's people that are like more talking about marketing, like, oh, you got to market. Like, yes, that's important, and it's only a function of the business, just like servicing is, just like operations is, everything else. The companies that are really succeeding at the highest level in IEB right now have figured out how to start building collaborative teams. How do they train people and collaborate on hiring more people, higher level talent, how to engage that talent, how to bring the genius of that talent into their organization. And that's why if you're competing with one of these companies today, you may think that we're competing on like marketing or this, but they're playing with a different set of rules than like other companies are playing. And that's what most people don't get. Like they don't understand that it's just like IEB, right? There's other organizations in the inspection industry that have training, have coaching, stuff like that. It doesn't matter what they train. They can't match the culture that we have within IEB. They can't match the level of collective group genius that we have within IEB, no matter what they try. Now they can bring like other experts in from outside and like train on stuff, but that no matter who they bring in, it's not as powerful as unlocking collective group genius, because like you guys said, like 200 people fully being involved in idea generation is exponentially more powerful than bringing one of the smartest people on the planet in to teach for 2 hours, right? So, and that's what we've really started unlocking within IEB. But the reason is because the rate of change is so much faster now than the human ability to adapt to change. So if you're kind of like the isolated, like one person organization, or you're an isolated, like top down leader, just leading or I would say like managing a group of people, right? You're like the owner, CEO, whatever, and you got like a group of employees that work for you, but they're not actively engaged in moving the organization forward. They're not being in their best. They're not, bringing ideas. They're not taking charge of implementing things. If that's the way you're going, it's like, look, you're the lone wolf out there, and it's kind of like Game of Thrones, like winter has come, right? When winter comes, the lone wolf dies. Like we're in that phase right now, and that's why we're seeing that, bigger money people, private equity, all that kind of stuff is coming into the inspection industry. They're coming into HVAC, contracting, roofing. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you are a service-based company tied to the real estate transaction, people with more money, with better technology, with better teams are coming in right now, buying up companies, merging companies, starting companies. So we said, look, the level of competition in the inspection industry in 5 years is going to be, I would say, not even like 3 or 4 times what it is today. It's going to be like 15 to 20 times what it is today. It's going to get really competitive.
And are your biggest groups in IEB, are they part of Pivot Ready teams too? Because that's separate from IEB, right?
Well, we actually just rolled out like IEB's like a white label version of it. So IEB now has their own Pivot Ready product that's exclusive to the inspection industry through IEB. And we just actually made the announcement at Unite, right? So we've actually got Thursday and Friday, we're training about 20 companies in that. So, I'd say because the 1st of June, we're actually releasing the full membership product, IEB product for members. We've already been working with about 28 IEB companies in Pivot Ready teams for over a year now. And my guess is that we'll probably be at 60 companies within like 2 or 3 months that are not just IEB members, but also IEB Pivot Ready team members. And, for us, when companies get it, when they get into that training and see what that's about, all of a sudden, like they're not thinking in terms of like just what needs to happen to do a better inspection anymore. They're not just thinking about, hey, how are we going to market our company? They're not just thinking about operations. They're really thinking about, okay, how do we get the right people to be able to do things in 2 or 3 years that we never would have even dreamt was possible? And I mean, that's why, some of the companies that we have been, there's been, 6, 7, 8, 9, actually 13 companies now that I've worked with one-on-one for going back as far as like 3.5 years. And these are the companies now that when you're saying like, man, like I can't believe there's so many like $5 million plus companies. Like these are the companies that, it started off with Greg, right? Greg was actually my first client before IEB existed, right? And when I started BERGflow, because we work in multiple industries, But I had, Greg was in the inspection industry, and he said, hey, I want to expand into some different cities and really grow my company. I mean, he already had a $3 million company at the time. So he hired me as kind of his coach and consultant. And within like 3 months, he's like, oh my gosh, like we need to take this to the inspection industry. And I was like, dude, no way. Like I'm not getting into the inspection industry. And, we just kind of kept talking, and I kept working with him, and he said, hey, let me show you a few things of what I see is going to happen in this industry. And, Greg had a lot of foresight to see changes that were coming down the pipeline that most other companies did not see.
Yeah.
And so we started looking at the bigger opportunities in the industry, and I said, okay, let's do this. And the like, if we do this and you and I partner to do IEB, you have to be an open book company to anybody that comes to you to join IEB. And he said, done. It wasn't even a consideration. Like you didn't have to think about it, right? And I mean, we've got 7, 8 companies, not just the big enterprise companies, but we 8 or 9 companies in Houston alone. I mean, he's got Redfish Inspections. Will Meisgates is literally, I mean, Will's office is like 2 miles away from Greg's. And, Will used to be at Greg's office all the time, his team, stuff like that. And like, hey, what are you guys doing here? Like, that's like the thought, right? I mean, Rob and Michelle was next. I worked with them. And then started kind of like all these other companies that are now in the enterprise, because we like my team works one-on-one with those companies on an ongoing basis at the enterprise level. And it's just changing the way that they look at the game. Yeah. Because I mean, so many people are like, oh, I need to get this. If I can just get this technology, if I can just get this freaking tool, and we're just like, stop worrying about the damn tools. Like, stop worrying about something that doesn't matter that much. Like, yes, it has a place in the business, but the X factor are your people. And then the can you get those people in the right seats, doing the right things and learning how to work together? Like, if you get that figured out, running a home inspection company is not rocket science. Doing a home inspection is not rocket science, right? It's like, look, you've got a system, you got a process you follow, depending on the different houses, different types of construction, it's a little bit different, but it's not a rocket science type thing, right? It's like going out and like, how many times can you duplicate that? But the bigger part is that's fine. I mean, if you want to build $1 million company, you don't have to be very sophisticated to do that, right? I mean, it's just like, look, with a little bit of longevity, with figuring out a few things, you can build $1 million company. Now, if you want to build a $3 or $4 or $5 million company, it gets a little more complex. You want to build a $10 million company, you have to have the right people in the right seats doing the right things. Like, and that's what we really specialize in.
No, that's so true too, because, even your conference made me realize that, we're a $2.5 million company, and, we've been stagnant. And I remember Rob and Michelle were in my kind of market. And I remember like almost catching them. And then they went to IEB, they left the platinum MIC, and then just talking to Rob at the conference, he's like, yeah, like they're like double my size. I'm like, that's awesome, dude. And he was just so willing to share everything. Like, he's like, yeah, we expanded to Delaware, and we expanded over here, and we're going to New Jersey. I'm like, wow, that there's really no secret. I think it's doing it and then seeing that he's put incredible people in place to run his company, where he's like, Joey, I walked in the other day and there was 3 people I didn't know that new hires, and I wasn't even a part of it, because things are just growing without him, and because he has the team in place to do it. It's insane. It's the testament to what you guys have done.
You just nailed it. There's no secrets.
Yeah.
Right. I know, like, it's like there's people that market like, oh, the secrets. They get the secret. There's no secret, but there is an X factor, and the X factor are the people. There's no secret about them. Yeah. Right. There's no secret about like how you do it. I mean, we openly train people on how to do it. There's no secret to it, but you either know how to do it or you don't. But like, what do you think the number one thing is that gets in the way from people being able to do this work?
Themselves.
But what specifically about themselves?
Their own ego, the control.
Ego. Yeah. That's it. Ego. Egotistical people they hate the work that we do. They can't stand it, because for them, it's that I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I have to like work with the team. I have to collaborate. I have to be part of the team, not like own the team or tell the team what to do. So time in and again, like we've seen, like, look, if you've got ego, one, you're not going to fit in with IEB very well. And secondly, you're not going to be able to actually do this work. Like, the first thing that has to go is your freaking ego, right? Meaning that you've got to be humble and say like, hey, I need to do work on myself. I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to honor the people that I'm in business with. And it's a hard process, man. It's not easy. Like it's simple, but that's something Gary Keller used to say all the time, right? I remember him saying this all the time. He said, it's simple, it's not easy. Meaning it's not rocket science. Like, I mean, I can sketch out the playbook on a napkin for you. It's simple.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. Like, because it's hard because you have to work on yourself every single day. And you've got to create the environment where your people can learn and grow and develop. And unfortunately, that's something that most people, one, they don't know how to do it, or secondly, they don't want to do it. They look at their people as like the last thing that they need to invest in their company. So we need to go buy new trucks. We need to go buy new tools, new technology. We need a fancy website, and then they hire people that aren't bought in, aren't capable, don't want to be there, and then they treat their people like crap anyway. And it's just like, look, dude, drive old trucks, make do with like Google spreadsheets if you need to, buy used equipment, go hire really good people. That doesn't mean that you have to pay through the roof. Like, you can hire really good people for $12 an hour if you know how to find them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, any day that I would take a great team over the best technology, the best tools, the best, all that kind of stuff. And the great team will get to the point where we're dominating and we have the best technology, best tools, best processes, everything else. But I would rather start with a great team, with the right people, than try to do it any other way.
The home inspection industry is highly competitive, and you need an edge to stay on top. You certainly can't afford to give profit away for no reason. But what if I told you credit card processors may be overcharging you and robbing you of profits you've worked hard to earn? It's time to put an end to being overcharged for payment processing. It's time to take back your profits. That's why we've put together a free report, How to Avoid Being Overcharged by Your Payment Processor. Head over to takebackyourprofits.com, download the report, and put an end to being overcharged for credit card processing. You've worked hard for your sales, and you deserve to keep it. What are you waiting for? Go to takebackyourprofits.com and download your report today.
There are a couple $5 million companies in IEB that have never done an inspection, like owners that have never done an inspection and didn't even have their license till just like recently. Like, that's crazy to me. I mean, when we heard like Harmony's one of them, the Lunsfords, like, he's like, I don't even have my home inspector license. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, and it's, and just even hearing them, it's because they've hired the right people for the right spots that are just taking it over, and they're not even in the day-to-day of their companies.
And so we had them on 2 episodes ago, and one testament to the sharing and in communication in IEB as a community is that Kristen Lunsford was telling us she was in education, and as a teacher, she was all about systems and procedures, and she was actually just able to get physically like all of the systems and procedures she needed from competitors, from people in that community, and then she was able to use those. So that to me is just a wild testament to IEB. The fact that people are able to say, here you go. You need this? I got it for you. I got it all figured out. That to me is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing about them is, they built like a $10 million pest company and sold that company a couple of years ago. And now they're putting all their time and effort and energy into building an inspection company. And they've told us, like, look, even building a pest company that big, we never had the training and education and everything. They said if we had this back then, we would have probably built a $30, $40, $50 million pest company.
Wow.
And maybe Terminex.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing is with a community like this, you can come in and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Hey, have you guys ever figured out the system or process? What do you use here? And like, people are just like, oh, check the file section, check the website, check the member section. Get on this call. Here's a link to this call that they discussed that. I mean, there's so much resource within IEB because people are always freely sharing, right? It's not because, again, it's not because Greg and I have it all figured out, right? I mean, like, we were very clear about, like, we're like chaos creators, man. Like we kind of get things going, but then like we're really bad at like organizing it, but same thing, like we've built a great team within IEB, like bringing Mark in to essentially be, our team leader now and running the organization for us. Cause again, I was the CEO of IEB kind of through the launch phase, right? Starting CEO and really in December is when I stepped down as CEO. I hired Mark last May. So he had about 7 months of kind of being in the role, leading. And I was like, dude, you are way better at running IEB than I am. I mean,
Yeah.
We gave Mark the reins to running IEB. And essentially, I mean, we meet with him really once a week for an owner's partner meeting. And same thing. It's like, if I had to figure out, because again, like, I mean, I'm the co-founder, owner of IEB. Dude, I have no clue how to do a home inspection. Like there's so much about home inspections that I have no clue about. And I mean, that's one thing is we finally, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, created like something called IEB Tech Talks, where people can like actually have the technical discussions. I've never once been in that Facebook group, not once. I'm never actually ever going to go into that Facebook group because it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. Like there's nothing that I could ever learn about the technical side of home inspections where I can bring an ounce of value to our community. Right. Yeah. The only way that I can bring, value to our community is I can continue to study human systems, right? Team collaboration, like what's happening in the business world, like how are things shifting with the real estate markets? Like those are the kind of things that if I stay, engaged in those things, that's how I continually inject value. Right. So we've just figured out how different people from different perspectives can collaborate together to inject the value into IE. And then we've created the opportunity for all members to do the same. So if you look at the collective injection of value into IEB on a weekly basis, I would put it up against, anybody else in the industry that's competing with IEB and saying like, we probably inject more value for people on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis than most organizations can do in a year or 2 years. Because it's not just me or just Greg or just Rob and Michelle. It's, now 250 companies. But between those 250 companies, I mean, I think the average IEB company now has 9 or 10 inspectors, the average size company. And I mean, that's crazy, right? Because I mean, we've definitely we've attracted the biggest, largest, and fastest growing, inspection companies in America that are business minded. Right, that are entrepreneurial based, that are growth minded. Like that's who we attract to IEB, and that's why the community is so amazing. But the cool thing is that it doesn't matter if we got an IEB member that has 100 people in their organization, and they're standing next to somebody that just got their license 2 weeks ago. That person that's running that $10 million organization is going to pour into and support and talk to that brand new person and say like, how can I serve you? Not like, oh, look at me, I've got this $10 million company, I'm the shit. Like it's like, the ego is out of it. It's just like we're all here to learn and grow and support each other. And I think like that's the most special thing about IEB.
Yeah, you said something, I think, when you were giving a talk, Dirk, and you said 80% of it is business, 20% is the product or service. And in any industry. And I remember Jake, when you were speaking, he's like, man, Dirk should be a college professor. I went to school for business, and I feel like I'm learning so much more here than I ever did at school.
So a quick testament to Dirk there. I was taking crazy notes every time someone was speaking, but specifically you. I took so many notes because so much of it is tangible stuff that applies to every industry. And I was really impressed at how deep you get into it. A lot of people, you said this before earlier in the show about secrets. There's always a guru who wants to tell you their management secrets, and it's always abstract and it's never concrete. And just a testament to you, I was really impressed with how you've taken concepts that I learned in college management classes, and you've gone levels deeper now to get to, all right, in this industry specifically, but also just in general, how does this actually apply? How does it work with the talent ascension and what you were talking about with hiring and all the cost to it and just assessment strategies? You were going so much deeper, and I'm really wondering, how did you get there? What experiences brought you there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So, I mean, for me, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was like, 5 years old. Like, I was never the kid that wanted to be like a fighter pilot or like, firefighter or like all these kind of things. Like, I was like, man, I want to be a business person, right? And I think when I was 16, I was like, I want to be an international business consultant, right? But so that was always kind of like my thing is like, I have a deep love for business. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad owned several businesses growing up. So I kind of saw the blueprint for that, right? But we immigrated from South Africa to the U.S. And I mean, at at 14 years old with a family of 5, we came to the US, and I mean, we had nothing. Like we had, like literally my dad had $500 in his pocket with a family of 5. By the time that we kind of got to a town, another family took us in. We lived with that family for 3 months before we could even rent a house. Wow. So, kind of starting with that, I kind of knew that I wanted to do business, but what happened at that point is that I started developing like a sick work ethic, because I was in a farming and ranching community. So every day after school, I would do farming and ranching work on the weekends, summer, stuff like that. I mean, our family wasn't able to take, summer vacations, or I know where you guys are. Like when I was in Maryland running the big real estate brokerage, it's like everybody like goes to the shore for the summer. Like everybody takes off like all summer. Like, and I was like, that was so foreign to me, because the world that I came from is like, as soon as summer happens, like, dude, you're on a tractor all day, you're working cattle, you're just doing hard manual labor. So from the time I was 14 years old, really all the way, even when I was in college, still weekends, summer, stuff like that, I was doing manual labor. So I learned how to work really hard. So for me to crank out a 14, 16, 18-hour workday, even consistently, is nothing. Like it's nothing to me, right? So I developed that, and I was like, hey, I've got incredible drive. I've got incredible work ethic. So when I started getting into the business world, my first business that I had was a ski and snowboard shop. And I ran that business for 7 years, and then it failed in 2008. And after that, I started kind of getting into, I went to work for an auction company, started getting into asset liquidation, had a, auction stuff. And I worked for this company part-time when I was going to college too. But I started learning how to do business liquidations for banks, and then selling off real estate, all kinds of stuff. And then I started running the real estate division for that company, got my real estate license by 2009. And then fast forward a couple of years, I mean, we were just in such a bad financial situation, because the ski shop that failed, like by the time it failed, like we were $300,000 in debt, and I had nothing to show for it, right?
Wow.
So it was kind of the situation where I promised my wife, like, hey, once we have kids, like she wanted to stay home. So, she stayed home, and by doing that, she enabled me to really go hard on the business side, on the, trying to build stuff. But I mean, fast forward like 5-6 years into this process, man, I mean, we were just being like grinded down. I mean, I was now, for years, just working 6-7 days a week, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, and wasn't getting out of our financial hole, wasn't moving things forward. And I mean, but by the time I was like 31 years old, I was just like, man, like something is wrong, right? I felt like there should be this American dream that you hear about, and I'm working my ass off to hit that American dream, and nothing's happening. So I knew that there was something foundationally that was flawed in the way that I operated. And so that's what I started looking for. It's like, what my dad taught me how to, like, hey, do the right thing, right? Have integrity, treat people well, work hard, right? I mean, like all of those kind of things I was doing, but I was like, something is missing, right? Because I felt like, hey, I feel like I'm a smart guy. I feel like I work really hard. Why am I not getting this? And in 2012, December of 2012, I went to a class in Austin with Keller Williams called Recruit Select. And it was a class about how to find and hire the right people, how to train them to be effective, and then how to lead them. And I mean, there were 150 other people in that class, but man, for me, and it was like 2 weeks after I joined Keller Williams, right? So for me, it's just like this lightning bolt hit my soul, and like this super highway opened up in front of me, and I was just like, this is it. And I promise you, man, like out of anybody in that class, I probably got more out of that class than anybody else. And I took that class, 4-day class. I took it 7 times in the next 3.5 years. I went back and I went back and I went back and I studied it, and I talked to people. And I mean, I studied lead generation and team building nonstop for 4 years. Every book I read, every conversation I had, I started hiring coaches that helped me with that. And after 4 years of doing that, man, like, I mean, our life had really started changing. I built a very successful real estate team that we expanded into multiple cities. Got a leadership opportunity with Keller Williams. And then, I started studying more leadership and, development, wealth building. By 2017 is when I really started studying. When I started BERGflow, I started studying human systems. Like, what are the dynamics of when humans actually come together? Right. And it's such an abstract type thought, but there's an art and a science to what happens when humans come together. And some people get it naturally, and some people are just completely blind to it. I was one of those people that were just completely blind to it, right? Where a lot of times too, it's a level of like having a lower emotional intelligence. And unfortunately, sometimes really driven people have low emotional intelligence. And it's one of these things that if somebody ever tells you like, oh, I've got really high emotional intelligence, they have low emotional intelligence, right? Because it's like anybody that actually has a really high level of emotional intelligence will tell you like, man, like I've got some real blind spots in like multiple areas. I feel like, it's just one of those things. So I started this process of studying human systems, team collaboration, high performance teams. And we adopted some new technology within BERGflow that we use today. We adopted a new system that we developed, and we put the whole thing together called Pivot Ready Teams. And we've been beta. It took us about 18 months to build it, and we've been beta testing it for about 18 months now. So, we're about 3 years into the process of building this system, and we just gave our first white licensing to exclusively for the inspection industry to IEB. So, I mean, it's like in the BERGflow world, like that's what we eat, sleep, and breathe every day. It's what we study. Yeah. We've got a whole team of developers that, we've got some really, really amazing, smart people on our BERGflow team that just, again, like they eat, sleep, and breathe this development, course development, training, coaching. I mean, all this kind of stuff. So what we did with IEB is from day one, when we started IEB, we just injected all of this into IEB from day one. And we're still today just injecting as fast as we can learn. We're injecting it into IEB. And I think like that's really been one of the X factors for IEB. But again, the biggest thing is the creating the community where other people comes in, and that's what we've done. If we injected everything we did into IEB, but we never created the space for other people to be heard, to be for their voices to come in for collaboration and sharing, like IEB would not be what it is today, right? It's 100% about just creating the right environment and the people flourish in that environment.
It's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, what you built, and for our listeners, if you have not heard of Inspector Empire Builder, you need to check it out, especially if you want to grow a big business. If you're stuck, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go. It's truly an incredible network of people, and you guys have tremendous resources. I know because I just joined last week, and I'm just taking a quick glance at all the stuff that you guys are doing or have for inspectors. It's truly amazing when you can take somebody that hasn't even done an inspection before, and yet they're building a multi-million-dollar inspection business. Wow. I mean, again, it's a testament to the teams and the collaboration and everything that you guys have put together for the inspector to empower them, for them to collaborate, even if they're in their own market. We're going to make each other stronger together than we would trying to fight each other separate. And we're going to raise the bar on the industry. So thanks, Dirk, for being on our show. Thanks for putting together an incredible mentorship organization for the inspection community. You are a true leader in our industry, and we really appreciate having you on our podcast. It's been an honor, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I'd say the biggest thing is I've got incredible partners like Greg Bryan, Rob Michelle Hopkin. We've got an amazing team with IEB, and then our coaches, our community ambassadors. I mean, it's really about the people that are involved in the organization. Like that's what makes it amazing. So glad you guys joined too, man. Welcome to the family. And excited to continue the conversation with you guys.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Very excited. So before we go, just if our listeners could have one takeaway on the biggest thing that they should or should not do, if it's a new home inspector looking to grow their business, what's one thing that they should be doing right away? They turn off this podcast, run back to their office. What's one thing they should or should not be doing?
Okay, so one is going to be like super self-serving, right? One is, if you haven't done so, take our Rep to Gain training. We call it RGT class. It's a 2-day intensive class that will, your head will like spin around a couple of times. Like that's one of the foundational pieces of IEB, right? If you haven't taken RGT, I would say you don't have to be a member to take it. You can take it and still not join IEB, but that training is going to be the one thing that's going to transform the way that you look at your business, look at yourself, look at the opportunities, look at the industry. It changes everything. And I mean, we've had, like the Lemoynes have told us, right? Rob and Kat Lemoyne, which they're one of our biggest companies. They've said, you should not let somebody even join IEB if they haven't gone through RGT, right? Because until they go through, even if they, like what you guys experience, like RGT is going to be a different level where your head is just like, you're going to like different levels of thinking and you just like start questioning everything. And I would say that's the one thing that you should do. The thing that you should stop doing, let me think about that. The thing that you should stop doing is trying to figure out how you're going to do everything. Okay. Stop figuring out how you're going to do everything and start asking the question like, who do I need to be talking to? Who do I need to be getting in business with? Who should I be hiring? Right. So because when you're always asking the question like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Then you're the one that has to figure it out and you're the one that has to do it, which means that you're always going to be stuck in the weeds in your business. If you start asking the question, okay, how am I, or like who's done this before? Who can I talk to about it? Who's the right person that can hire? Who's the right person that needs to implement it? Then immediately you go to a higher level of operation. You're going to start moving forward faster. So that's probably what I would say to those two questions.
That's great. Well,
That is valuable.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our listeners. Thank you very much to Dirk. And Dirk, thank you for all of the great connections we've made at IEB that we're going to have come join us on the show and speak to our audience as well. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Inspection Pro Joe podcast. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the bell so you won't miss our next episode. This episode was produced by Jake Aronson. This has been a Pair Payments production.